Hello, John from Peter Tyson. So you bought a shiny new turntable and you're not sure where to get started. Or maybe you just want to make sure yours is sounding as good as it should. Hopefully this handy little guide will get you up and running in no time. Let's just crack on. First things first, I like to get everything laid out so that I know what I'm working with. And I can't stress this enough, take your time and be gentle. There are a lot of precision small parts on a turntable that can be easily broken. Also set out enough time to do it so that you're not rushing. Mistakes now lead to extra expense later. Nobody likes that. The turntable I'm using is a Pro-Ject Debut EVO 2. How it's packaged and the accessories you get will vary slightly depending on which turntable you have, but you should have all of these basic ingredients. If you've bought a belt driven turntable like this one, in the box of accessories you will find said drive belt. So it's as simple as running the belt round and then around the motor pulley. Some turntables will have an exposed motor pulley that will sit further out here, and they may even have a manual speed selector. The small pulley on top is for 33 RPM records and the larger pulley is for 45 RPM records. However, on this turntable there's an automatic speed selector that doubles up as a power switch. So now the drive belt's correctly fitted, we can fit the platter. So the hole in the middle just slides over the central spindle. There we go. And then most turntables will come with an anti-slip mat. Now we just need to fit the tone arm counterweight. It's one of the most important bits of the turntable. This makes sure that the stylus that sits in the cartridge is pressing into the grooves of the record with the correct amount of force to give you the best sound and the least distortion. Too little force and you'll find that the stylus can jump across the record, which is very unpleasant. Too much force can cause damage. In the instructions for your turntable, if it's pre-installed, or for your cartridge if you're replacing it, there will be a recommended tracking force. In this case, the Pickett EVO cartridge recommends a tracking force of 1.8 grams. Install the counterweight with the numbers facing towards the front of the tone arm. It places on and then it will twist. We can remove the ties and the tape that are keeping everything in place for shipping. Now with the counterweight in place, we need to zero it. I'll show you the manual way to do it and then an easier way afterwards. So for this we want to make sure that the Q lever, this will raise and lower the tone arm when it's above the record so it can safely start to play. That needs to be in the lower position. The stylus guard on the front needs to be removed. Now we can remove the tone arm from its holder, gently twist the weight backwards or forwards so that the tone arm will float horizontal with the platter. So once that is nice and balanced, gently place it back in. Then we need to hold the weight so that it doesn't move and then move the gauge round so that 0 is at the top. So we know that is 0 tracking force. Now we know where 0 is, we can turn the whole thing to screw it down to 18. For an easier and more accurate way, you can buy a stylus tracking gauge. I'll leave a link to one down in the description. Turn it on. Make sure that it's set to 0. If not, press tear. And then very gently, using the Q lever, just lower the stylus down the black point. I've got a 1.79. I'll take that. Now the all-important job of setting the anti-skate. The tone arm will have a natural tendency to want to swing towards the centre of the record, so we need something in place to stop it doing that. In this case, the Pro-Ject has a manual weight with a very fine, it's almost like fishing wire with a little loop on the end. This is quite fiddly, can be a little frustrating, so just take your time. On the post on the back of the tone arm, you will see 3 notches. Those are different recommended weights. The cartridge installed in this particular model, it's recommended that you use the middle notch. To place the wire through the hook and then over the post so it sits in the middle notch. And it should end up looking like that. If your turntable has an anti-skate dial rather than a weight, just set the number to be the same as the tracking force. This turntable comes with the cartridge already installed, but if yours doesn't, or you're just upgrading or using a different cartridge, just secure the cartridge using the 2 bolts provided. Tighten them up so they're snug, but be careful not to over tighten. Around the back of the cartridge you'll find 4 terminals and 4 terminated wires. Just match up the colours and use snipe nose pliers, being very careful. Then we'll need our handy alignment protractor. Place the hole over the spindle and then carefully place the stylus on the cross. The body of the cartridge should line up with the grid. Once you've done the outside one, carefully move it over to the inside grid, doing the same process. It should line up perfectly. If it doesn't line up, lift the tone arm and slightly loosen the head shell bolts. Physically move the cartridge so that it lines up, make small adjustments and keep trying. Repeat the process until it's nice and aligned. If you can get one grid to line up and not the other, try moving the cartridge forward and backwards within the head shell. Persevere, take your time, and you'll end up with a nicely aligned cartridge. It's worth it for the sound quality. Now you can mount a record, lower the tone arm, and just check that the tone arm sits parallel with the record surface. This can be an issue if you're using particularly chunky cartridges. No problem for this deck because it's all pre-made. Some turntables do have a height adjustment if your tone arm isn't sitting parallel. And all that's left is connect the RCA phono leads, red to right and white to left. It's important to fit the ground connector as well. This will prevent any hum from the turntable reaching the loudspeakers. Place your turntable on a solid flat surface. More dense the better, to avoid vibrations from the room reaching your turntable. If it's not quite level, often they will come with adjustable feet that you can just turn. So once you're connected to your amplifier of choice, you can power up. Make sure that the Q lever is raised. Place the tone arm over the record and then lower the Q lever. Some people like to listen with the dust cover down to protect everything while the turntable's in use. Some people will listen to it open. Others will argue that that will catch vibrations from the room. Some people like to remove the lid completely while it's in use. I'll leave that up to you to debate down in the comments. So that's it. All that's left to do is sit back and enjoy your vinyl. If you've got any more questions, leave a comment, use the email address in the description, or give us a call here at Peter Tyson Carlisle. Until then, you'll see me in the next video. Take care.